This is Lama Dawa Zangpo. We are continuing our series of introductory Dharma talks about a variety of topics, coming mostly from the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, which is my background and training. And we have Tal with us, who is a beginning student who is very engaged and entering into this path of practice and meditation. And so I will continue tonight. And as always, any of you that are watching this video, wherever you are and whoever you are, you're warmly invited to submit or ask any questions you may have. And hopefully this will be of some benefit to you. So we've talked about meditation. We've talked a lot in the last few weeks about various philosophical kind of frameworks of Buddhist teaching. And I wanted to continue tonight and talk a little bit about a very practical kind of teaching that's traditional and very important. It's important because it helps us assess and honestly look at ourselves from perhaps a slightly different point of view. Because as I mentioned the other week, the great Buddhist philosopher from Greece, Socrates, said, "Know thyself." And now he wasn't explicitly or specifically Buddhist. That was kind of almost a joke, not a very funny one, but his teachings are very much in accord with Buddha's teachings. And the two famous things that he is reputed to have said and taught his students was, as I just mentioned, know thyself. But he also said the unexamined life is not worth really living. That, in other words, that we're squandering this opportunity that this life presents if we don't have an internal kind of examination of our situation. In other words, if we're just on an automatic pilot, if we're just going through life, we are squandering something. We are denying ourselves an opportunity to investigate and to develop some deeper understanding, some wisdom. So there's a traditional teaching, it's known as the 8 worldly dharmas. And again, normally most people are going through their lives. And this is a way to kind of hone in or zero in a little bit on how we work, but how we react to things in our life that come up. And as I've said before, the practice of Dharma, of Buddhist, applying Buddhist teachings, is to fundamentally give ourselves leverage. You know, it's the crowbar that kind of can pry things open. And what we're trying to do is change in the sense of applying wisdom and self-awareness to reach more of our potential, to become, you could say, better versions of ourselves. We're polishing the uncut stone, the raw gem that we are. So how do we do this? We've talked about cultivating awareness and understanding that all things are changing and impermanent, that everything is connected to other things, interdependent, and things of this nature. So as worldly beings immersed in a society, immersed in family, immersed in the world, immersed in our careers and jobs, immersed in 21st century civilization, we deal with things every single day, things that constantly come up as we have friction, as we rub shoulders with other beings, friends, loved ones, and others. The 8 worldly dharmas are 4 sets of pairs of kind of dualities, in a sense, that we come up against and that can really sort of mess with our minds, so to speak. They sort of have this ability to jerk us around, almost, you could say, a little bit. So what are these 4 pairs? Well, I said they're worldly dharmas. These are the 8 worldly things that we deal with. So that's what I was just talking about, worldly in the sense of day-to-day life. So what are they? We say gain and loss is one of these pairs. We gain things, we accomplish things, we accumulate things, we gather things, we buy things. And so we have things, and then we lose things. The point is to develop about all these 8 worldly dharmas is to actually develop an equanimous mind, a mind that doesn't get, I used to say, we're like a marionette, the puppeteer that's pulling the strings. And we have a happy thought and it makes us happy. And we have a sad thought, it makes us sad. And we have a jealous thought, it makes us jealous. We have a prideful thought, it makes us feel pride. We're sort of jerked around by our thinking, by our thoughts. These thoughts have power over us in a sense. It's almost like we're victimized by our own thoughts. We're jerked out of our peace of mind, our equanimity. So the first pair is this gain and loss. Normally, worldly beings, all of us, we are happy when we gain something, when we get a new car. And we are saddened when we lose those things. Car accident, the car gets scratched, or gain a new lover. We're saddened when their lover leaves us. So gain and loss. They jerk us around big time. We have pleasure and pain. We love pleasure. We love all of its forms, sensual and other forms. The pleasure of something that tastes wonderful. But something that tastes terrible is almost painful, or we have pleasure and pain as bodily sensations, as sensory sensations. So again, we don't have equanimity. We are jerked around. Pleasure, pain. We have fame and disgrace. People want fame. They love being famous or being acknowledged. And when things go bad, or you're slandered, or so on, it's just awful. Our egos are bruised. And then the 4th pair is called praise and blame. Again, if we are praised and we're complimented, we feel so good. That's just look how great I am. But we get blamed for things, even if things we didn't do necessarily. It's just awful. Again, devastating. So these are called the 8 worldly dharmas. The point of practice is to, again, like polishing the gemstone, smooth out some of those rough edges. Don't get so caught up. We learn to temper things. Again, we have to remember the common sort of label for Buddhism is the middle way. So can we find some kind of middle ground? We don't have to go up so high. We don't have to go down so low. This is kind of almost a yoga. And actually, if we're really going to get down to it here, to not have Buddhism as just a kind of a hobby, but if we're taking it sort of serious in a sense, we are cultivating a kind of a yoga. Buddhism is really yoga. It's really yoga of the mind. So I'm not talking about physical yoga and postures. I'm literally talking about yoga of the mind, working with the mind. That's the cultivation of equanimity, of peaceful calmness, having a flexible mind. And if we rigidly get jerked around by our thoughts up and down, good and bad, which are designations, then we are not really being yogis in a sense. And I don't want to get too lofty here, and we're all beginners. Let's be clear about that, all of us. But this is what we start to practice and at least realize, oh, yeah, praise and blame. I do get very happy when I'm praised. I do get really depressed if I'm blamed for something. I don't like it. So to develop a mind that is broad, that is larger in a sense, that's encompassing, it can hold praise and blame, pleasure and pain, loss and gain, fame and disgrace. If we can encompass those things, take them sort of with a grain of salt, that's developing a higher perspective in a sense. A more, you could almost say, a more mature perspective. That's what we're actually working with. Meditation over time, these things don't come quickly and immediately, but over time, the point of meditation, it's not just following the breath. It's to start to actually gain this understanding of how one's mind works. And we start to get better at seeing our thoughts, seeing how we react, seeing how thoughts seem to dictate our emotions. We start to see how thoughts dictate our emotional responses, whether it changes our blood pressure or our pulse rate, or a squirt of adrenaline from our adrenal glands, fight or flight, any of those kinds of things. So the yoga is allowing thoughts to come and go. A thought that's pleasurable or a thought that's painful. The remembrance of somebody criticizing us or somebody praising us. And we start to realize that's not me. The ultimate me, the sort of, I hate to say the word enlightened me, but the idea that I am something other than my thoughts. Very, very important, because we're on this journey, as Socrates said, of knowing who actually am I. Because who we actually are on the most fundamental, deep level is awakened awareness. That's not contingent on praise and blame, pleasure and pain, and all these kinds of things. It's something that's, you can say, unchanging. This is something that we'll be exploring and getting into later through meditation, through the process in Tibetan Buddhism we call insight meditation, which is where we start to actually develop insights into the nature of these kinds of thoughts. But this is the difference between automatic pilot, worldly being, going through one's life, not looking internally, not examining how one works, how one's mind works, how one's thoughts work, our relationship with our thoughts. So this is meditation path, the path of accumulating wisdom, the path of meditation, the path of developing insight. But as I've said in past videos, and this is really important, if we're honest and we can acknowledge I'm a beginner, whatever that means, we first learn to stabilize the mind, to learn how to be present for longer and longer periods of time. That's what we call shamatha meditation. It's the foundation of everything in Buddhism. A mind that is calm, relaxed, clear, stable, and not getting thrown off. That's real yoga, yoga of the mind. This is the path of meditation, to develop this kind of a mind. These aren't tricks. These aren't like the little temporary skill sets that we're developing. It's true insight, true wisdom that starts to come. But we don't force it. We don't rush it. We don't have to be impatient about it. We just trust this process. That's why it's good to have a teacher. It's good to have a relationship. It's good to have a consistent practice that you renew every day, reminding ourselves why we're on this journey, the nature of our existence being unsatisfactory, being frustrating, our anxieties, our stresses, all these things that we carry with us, our hidden fears, and that there's a way out, and that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and we can kind of get out of the forest and get into the clearness, the clearing, where we can see more broadly. And then, as I said in the last video, we start to see that all beings are lost in this sort of dark forest, but that there's a way out. In fact, there's multiple paths out of the forest. Everybody has their own pathway out of the forest. No problem. No problem. So I had a student once say, Lama Dawa, why do you talk about suffering so much? It's depressing. And I said, well, my first thought is, well, tough luck. We need to hear this, because we do need to hear this. And again, it's not to be depressing, it's to be sobering and aware. And we need to be reminded of it, because everything in our society, everything in our civilization is telling us, just stay sort of in your comfort zone. Everything's okay. Plenty of entertainment to keep you occupied. Plenty of things to kind of keep yourself sort of medicated. And again, those of us that are drawn, it's because there is some deep inner sense of, my life is not perfect, probably far from it, and I can do better. And I want to find the way to kind of solve my own problems. That's the thing about Dharma, right? About Buddhism. Nobody's doing it for us. Buddha, God, nothing is here to save us. We save ourselves. We apply by applying sort of common sense. Nothing we're talking about is magical or mystical. It's very grounded in, this is the situation. For a sentient being, we have a mind. The mind reacts in certain ways. Like we said, certain thoughts make us feel a certain way. Other thoughts make us feel another way. And we can start to develop a broader, more accurate, more panoramic awareness and understanding. So we have self-mastery, the ability to raise oneself up by applying, that we have that ability, that we're pretty darn smart after all, despite our stuckness, because it starts with this humble acknowledgement of what my situation actually is. So those 8 worldly dharmas, very helpful. Because again, it kind of brings it on home. Oh yeah, I do respond to thoughts this way or that way. So it's very important to start off being humbled and go, okay. And then realize I can work on this. And that's the whole point. We're working on it. We're working on ourselves. Okay, Tal, I think you may have a question or two.
Well, I want to just make sure I got the 8 worldly dharmas correct. Is gain, loss, pleasure, pain, fame, disgrace, praise, and blame?
Yes.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right. Not really a question so much as what I was observing during my meditations for the last week. Um, I would notice I was observing while observing my thoughts, my breath. My thoughts, of course, will intrude constantly, and without fighting it per se, I would just draw my attention back to my breath. And then I kind of noticed at some points where there's this almost a third party perception of both at the same time, where um, I'm perceiving my thoughts, or I'm observing them while I'm having an inner dialogue about all kinds of things, including the breath itself. So there's a lot of chatter, I guess you would say. And and during this chatter, sometimes my back will hurt, and I will stretch forward and allow to while I'm still observing the breath. So I'm even when I'm moving in that way to alleviate some of the pressure on my spine, I'm still making an effort to observe my breath in that movement. So not really a question here, obviously, but more like what I've been observing, what I'm doing, and I'm not like fighting against moving my back because I have to stay straight and not move. I'm like I'm feeling some negative thing in my back. I want to alleviate that, so I'm moving a little bit, but also trying to continuously focus on the breath at the same time. That's pretty much what's going on, and and every day is a little different in terms of the session that I'm having. I go some instances I'm having more success in staying focused, but it's the mind is very chatty. At least my mind is, obviously. I think everybody's mind is. So yeah, I experimented also as from our last conversation with a few different types of pillows. I noticed that I have one of the pillows that I like a lot because it gives me ability to change height is this pillow that has like these I guess it's probably rice or sand or something in it, and I can bunch it up and kind of move it. And that's been helping my back situation.
Yeah, good.
That's
Very good.
that's it.
Okay,
All right. Thank you, Lama Dawa. I appreciate you.
very good. Thank you.